Hello there, welcome. This is the Disability Law Show, back for another edition. Glad you're here. It's 30 minutes long. You will learn lots, that much we can almost guarantee. John Scholes, simply the host, all the brains sitting right there. Sivan Tumarkin, disability lawyer at disabilityrights.ca. I always tell you from the start how to get a hold of Sivan and his crew. Phone numbers first, 1-855-821-5900. Consultations are free, so is the chit-chat, so give him a call if you need him. And talk to Sivan. Back it up with that email, help@disabilityrights.ca. Always have a focus feature here on every show. In our next segment this week, it's going to be 3 myths about invisible disabilities. What's that all about? We will cover that off very shortly. That, some emails, and some other things. So strap in. We're ready to go. We always start off with the week that was, case of the day. Sivan, a success story. What do you got for us today, pal?
Hey, John. Good to be here with you and our viewers. Let me start off with a call that I received earlier this week. It was a lady. She's 39 years old. She is a doctor. She's a family doctor in a rural area. And she called me because she has been on long-term disability for the last 3+ years. And the reason for her disability is because of significant anxiety, some depression, but it's mostly the anxiety. But we're talking about very, very high-end anxiety. In fact, she had to have her husband there on the phone with her. And look, I mean, doctors, they're superheroes, but they're not invincible. And this lady has been struggling for a while, kind of remnants of COVID and what happened during COVID times. And the reason she called me is because she has been on long-term disability. She has a professional policy, and I want to talk about this for a second. Okay. Most people that call us who are on long-term disability or apply for long-term disability do that through their health benefits at work. So you work for a company, and you need to go on disability. They may or may not have short-term disability, but they also may have long-term disability, and so you apply under that health benefits portion of the long-term disability coverage. But some people out there, professionals, many of them, doctors, accountants, lawyers, engineers, whoever, they get private policies. They don't have policies through an employer. They're either self-employed or they just take it on their own. And so they take on these kinds of policies, and in many instances, they're policies that pay a lot of money, and they have a rider on them. It's called an own occupation rider. What it means is that, you know, John, we talked about how long-term disability works. In the normal course of things, okay, if you apply for long-term disability benefits through your health benefits at work, to get LTD for the first 2 years, you have to demonstrate that you are disabled from doing your own occupation. Beyond the 2-year mark, the test changes. It's, are you disabled from performing any occupation for which you're suited for by training, education, or experience? So the test changes. It's your own occupation versus any occupation for which you're suited for. In many professional policies, one of the features of these policies is this rider of own occupation, which means that the test doesn't change. The test remains, can you do your own occupation? So it's easier to stay on those kinds of policies. Now, in her situation, she's been on it for about 3.5 years. And the reason she called me is because she has a new adjuster on her claim, a new case manager, who now wants her to be seen by one of their assessors, a psychologist that they have chosen to assess her, a psychiatrist, sorry. And she's concerned because if she goes and sees the psychiatrist that the insurance company wants her to see, that psychiatrist may produce a report that may say that she's not as disabled and she should be able to go back to practice. And I explained to her, look, it is possible that that would happen. That's one of the reasons why insurance companies, one of the primary reasons insurance companies want you to be seen by one of their doctors. But even if that happens, I said, you're being treated by a psychologist. You have your own family doctor. You've been seeing other people as well for your struggles. Everybody agrees that you could continue to be disabled from work. I wouldn't worry about what this assessor says from the insurance company. That person is a hired gun. It's a hired gun. So, you know, I was able to put her mind at ease, but John, we have a lot of professionals that we help, myself as well as other lawyers in my office, across the country, okay, in BC, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, in Ontario. We help a lot of professionals who have their own policies. And oftentimes insurance companies target those policies because they're high-paying policies. In this lady's case, the policy is paying her $13,000 a month. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but she was earning a good amount of money before. So insurance companies, as you can imagine, target those kinds of policies. And if there's any way that they can, you know, get somebody off this policy, they can stop paying, they're going to try and do it, and they'll do it. So again, if you're in that situation, you have questions about your policy, reach out to us. It doesn't cost anything to speak with me, member of my team. We deal with many of these kinds of policies, any kinds of policies really, but a lot of these kind of professional, high earner policies.
Is the length of time that she's been on the policy on claim, is that to her benefit? Because usually the insurance company, as we know, as we've done this show before, they usually come knocking around the 2-year mark. Well, she's over 3.
Yeah.
So they must have agreed at some point that she's still disabled enough to be on disability insurance, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. But remember, she hasn't had that change of definition. So it's not like she,
Right.
but by being on 3 years, somehow that's
Right.
better. But yes, if the insurance company has kept you on claim for 3.5 years and nothing really changed during that time, only the fact that there is now a new case manager, well, that's very suspicious for the insurance company to suddenly come saying, well, we think that maybe you're not disabled. Well, something is off there, you know? I mean, to me, that stinks. And I think the insurance company is going to be in a very difficult situation if they try to argue that somehow, because this new adjuster has now looked into other things, somehow that gives them the reason to cut her off legitimately. I don't think they'll be able to do it.
Well, you worked on that side for many years, and is that a common thing that when they get a new adjuster, like, you know, the bear that wants to scratch the tree and leave their mark, they want to beat their chest a little bit and come up with something? I mean, that sounds
Yes.
pretty rudimentary, but is that sometimes the case?
Yeah, I've seen it quite a lot happen. And one of the reasons because these adjusters, they have quotas.
Right.
Just like anybody else. They have quotas, they have to meet certain quotas. So, you know, they try and shake people off claim. And you know, some adjusters, I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, but some adjusters are horrible people. I've dealt with them, they're horrible. Some of them are angels, frankly. I mean, I'm glad that they're working for insurance companies. Ultimately, insurance companies are there to make a profit. That's how insurance works. But you can do it in a decent way, you can do it in a legitimate way, you can do it in a way that's fair, and you do have an obligation to your insured. There are obligations under the law that insurance companies have to their insureds. And if the insurance company breaches those obligations, you have a legal right to go after them, and we can help you pursue that.
Pocket Disability Lawyer, great website. I know you engineered it, put it together with your team. Sivan, give me some broad strokes about it.
It's a free, anonymous website that allows people, John, who have any questions about their short or long-term disability claims, or even if you just have generic questions and you don't want to call us and you don't want to email us for whatever reason, you can go to that website, get your answers fairly quickly. There's some drop-down menus, you select whatever applies to you, and you get your answers. Be very careful of Googling your questions. It's like Googling your question, you know, a medical question. You're going to get worst case scenarios. You're going to get websites sometimes which are outdated or incorrect, or even websites from law firms outside our jurisdictions, maybe in the States where the law is very different. So you have to be very, very careful. So pocketdisabilitylawyer.ca, we created that for people who just want to have a starting point, anonymous, free. Yep. Takes a few seconds, you get the answers you want, and then if you want, you can still reach out to us. Click the button and it'll connect you to us. Otherwise, you know, at least you got your answers.
For many years, Sivan and his team and myself have been on radio across the country doing our radio shows. I want to grab a phone call from one of our shows, Sivan. We'll play it back, we'll talk about it, and we'll provide some answers. So listen up.
Had a major stroke. I did get long-term disability for like 1 month. Knowledge that I qualified for it. They sent me like a retro kind of pay, but that was it. Like I lost contact after that. When I went back to work, I was being verbally abused by the director. It forced me to kind of quit my job. Just wondering if there's any recourse to go back after the insurance company.
Wow, what do you think?
Yeah, let me unpack that. But let me just say before I unpack that, number one, anytime you have any issues with your insurance company, don't wait. Don't wait, because if you wait or you do something without speaking with us, well, what can happen then is you can make things worse. And some things we can repair, some things we can't. And I'll explain this in reference to this. The second thing I was going to say is do not resign from your job. Again, not before speaking with us. Remember, I do long-term disability claims. My team does that. But a good chunk of my firm, headed by my partner, Lior, we do employment law, and so we can help you and advise you on the employment law piece. If you resign, you're potentially foregoing severance or foregoing other types of rights that you may have. In this case here, I need to understand a bit more about what happened, but if he was continuously disabled, let's say that he got benefits for a month, then he got nothing, and in a way he was forced to go back to work, even though he wasn't ready, and I'm assuming that as a result of him not being able to go back to work, he faced all these criticisms at work, which eventually led to him parting ways with his employer. There is potentially an argument, again, if we can show this medically with his doctors, that this was all led by the fact that he was disabled. Many people who suffer from an illness or an injury or a combination of both end up deteriorating at work. Oftentimes that leads to either a resignation, which again, do not resign without speaking with us, or to a firing. So the insurance company then says, well, it's an employment issue. Well, wait a second, but what's the underlying cause? I've had situations where people were employed for decades, only for them then to become ill, and then the employment relationship deteriorated. So on its face, on its surface, it looks like it's an employment issue, and it is to an extent, but there's an underlying cause, and the underlying cause is what it is that we go after the insurance company for, which is the fact that the person became disabled. That's why the employment piece happened. So again, because we do both employment law and long-term disability law, we can deal with both of these situations and protect you from both sides. Because oftentimes, John, people are stuck between a rock and a hard place. LTD, employer, they don't know what to do. We're the solution. Talk to us, we'll give you the answers.
And sometimes the reverse happens. You know, the employer gets word that you're being cut off disability. Well, you're coming back to work tomorrow. If that's the case, whoa. Doesn't work like that. Right?
Exactly. People are you know, there's no protection. They're afraid. They don't know what to do. And people ask, do you know this kind of lawyer? They'll ask their friends, do you know? Well, if you're seeing me here, or if you're seeing this program, you're listening to us, this may not be applicable to you, but you may know someone. You may have a friend that may need this information, or a colleague or a family member. Think about them. Again, it doesn't cost anything to speak to us about your long-term disability matter.
Lots more to cover, but we got to get into a short break. 3 myths about invisible disabilities. That is on the other side. Continue watching. Stay with us here on the Disability Law Show. People think contractors aren't owed severance. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Many contractors are actually employees and are entitled to full severance pay. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. How do you force insurance companies to pay long-term disability claims?
Insurance companies deny legitimate claims all the time. They're playing the odds. They know that most people are just going to walk away.
Your insurer may ignore you, they may even ignore your doctors, but they can't ignore us.
We know how insurance companies work. We know their weaknesses. We know how to use the legal process to force them to pay you what you're owed.
Go to disabilityrights.ca. Discover your rights, fight back, and get what you're owed. People think you are only owed 2 weeks' pay when you lose your job. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. You may be owed much more than 2 weeks per year. Don't settle for less. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Alrighty, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around through the break. John Scholes and, of course, disability lawyer Sivan Tumarkin right there. Reachable anytime. Phone number 1-855-821-5900. Consultations are free. And the email address is help@disabilityrights.ca. Main topic time, Sivan, another good one this week. 3 myths about invisible disabilities. Invisible disabilities. Well, how about this one? The first one, disabilities. Well, they must be visible to qualify for disability benefits, no?
So let's break down what visible and invisible mean, okay? Disabilities, they may seem invisible, meaning that it's not a broken arm, you know, or a laceration, or, you know, coma.
Head trauma, something.
Right. Yeah. But what happens if you are depressed? What happens if you have tremendous anxiety? What happens if you have tremendous back pains that are not picked up by an MRI? Or, these are invisible, and what I mean by that is insurance companies will often think or argue that there's no objective medical documentation. We've heard this quite a lot from insurance companies. Well, I'll tell you this, there's no requirement for these things to be visible, meaning for them to be able to see these things. Remember, medicine always gets better. With every year, with every month that passes, we have better and better machines that can pick up on these things. And the reality is that even if you're experiencing an illness or something that cannot be picked up by some kind of imaging, it doesn't mean that you do not qualify for long-term disability. But insurance companies oftentimes come back and say, well, there's no proof, or there's no sufficient proof, or there's no sufficient medical documentation. That's a favorite one of theirs. And again, people think, well, what can I do? I've gotten them a report from the doctor. I've gotten them an opinion. I've gotten them everything that they've asked for. What am I supposed to do? And so what happens is people say, well, I guess I don't have what it takes, and they walk away. But again, this is gaslighting. It's gaslighting because the insurance company cannot deny your long-term disability claim if your doctors confirm that you are disabled. And something else I want to say, John, sometimes you don't know what the diagnosis is. Sometimes all you have are symptoms. I've had that happen as well, neurological type of symptoms, different kinds of symptoms where you simply don't know. There's no actual, the diagnosis is in progress. It doesn't mean you don't qualify for long-term disability. If you are disabled, if you have symptoms that disable you from performing your occupation, your job, you should be on long-term disability. And if the insurance company says anything different, you give us a call, you email us, let me talk to you, let me review what they said, and let me tell you if they have a leg to stand on, because chances are they don't.
Because to your point, 30 years ago, something they would have deemed as invisible, now we have imaging or otherwise that proves it. So the umbrella is, can you work or not work because of your disability, right? That's kind of your protection. No?
For sure. Listen, the concept of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, has evolved, since the beginning of time. It was called something different during World War I. But, insurance companies, again, they're in the business of denying claims because that's how they make money. They collect premiums and they give nothing back unless you force them. So in a case like this, sometimes you need somebody to come in with a heavy hand against the insurance company and say, no, you're going to pay this person. But you have to be able to reach out to us so that we can actually take a look at your case and tell you if, in fact, you have a legal position that we can advance.
Myth number 2, insurers are always fair when evaluating claims for invisible disabilities. Tongue planted firmly in cheek with that one.
Yeah, so that's, we put that in there, I think, for some comic relief. For insurance companies to be fair, that would require them to change the paradigm altogether. Insurance companies have a duty under the law, and when I say duty under the law, that's legal terminology. They have a duty of care, they have a duty of good faith towards their insureds. There is a relationship there. And it's a relationship of a power disbalance between this massive insurance company and this individual. Same thing with me and you, with car insurance, house insurance, etc. The courts have recognized that. So legally, they have to be fair. They have to act fairly against us. Practically, I can tell you, I can count maybe on both hands the amount of times in my career where I've seen them actually be fair to people. They pay when they have to pay, when they're forced to pay. Why is it, John, that somebody is denied 3 or 4 times their claim, and then they come to us, and then we send a single letter to the insurance company, and then we get a response back, oops, we made a mistake, we're going to reverse course. Well, why did it take a letter from us or a legal claim from us to do so? Well, because they understand that if we played this along the way and this went to court, these things almost never go to court, but if it went to court, they'd get hammered by a judge. It shouldn't be this way, but that's how it is. So insurance companies, no, they're not going to act fairly. I think you have to presume that they're not going to be fair. I think you have to be prepared for that. And I think you can't panic. If you panic, you're doing what they want you to do, which is get scared and potentially walk away. You got a lot more power than you think. They just want you to think that you're powerless.
Third myth about invisible disabilities, Sivan, is this: if you are denied LTD despite support from your doctor, there's not much you can do.
Again, tongue-in-cheek, this is obviously if your doctors are saying that you are disabled and the insurance company takes issue with that, I can tell you it's a ridiculous position to take. Insurance companies, adjusters, are not doctors, they're not medical professionals. Now, sometimes what they'll do is they'll say, well, we had it internally reviewed by a medical professional. We had somebody on staff that took a look at this. Do you know how many times, John, when we've actually went after them legally and got production of their file and took a look to see who is that medical professional, we found out that it's somebody who doesn't have any specialty, that doesn't have a thorough understanding of the medical issues that our clients have. All we have to do is start digging in their file once we start that legal claim. And in many cases, they either reverse course or they come to the bargaining table to try and negotiate a resolution. They understand they have no choice. But insurance companies need to be pressured, because if they're not, if they don't think that they have exposure, legal exposure, they're just going to maintain their position. They're not going to pay you. If your doctors say that you're disabled and you know you're disabled and the insurance company denies your claim, the first thing you do is you give me a call. You give me a call, we talk about your case, I want to review the documentation, it won't take long, on the phone, and I'll tell you if you have a case or not. Simple. And it's going to cost you absolutely nothing to get this information.
All righty, good stuff. A short break. We get back to more of your emails and questions on the other side. This is the Disability Law Show. Stay with us. We got more coming up.
People think you have to sign back a severance offer by a deadline. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Deadlines are used as a pressure tactic. Make sure the offer is fair before you sign. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Can insurance companies deny long-term disability claims for mental illness?
When you're suffering from a mental health disability, insurance companies just don't understand. But we do.
They can absolutely not force you back to work. If your doctors say you are not ready and you know you're not ready, they cannot make you go back to work.
If you have a mental health disability and your claim is denied, don't give up. Give us a call and let us fight for you.
Go to disabilityrights.ca. Discover your rights, fight back, and get what you're owed. People think you aren't owed severance pay if you are fired for a reason. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Most for-cause terminations are false, and you are still owed full severance. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca.
And welcome back to the Disability Law Show. We always give you the contact information to reach out to Sivan and his team. Of course, a disability lawyer at disabilityrights.ca. Phone number 1-855-821-5900. Free consultation, so use that as you wish and have a chat with Sivan if it's a simple question or otherwise. Always available, and his team as well. help@disabilityrights.ca is the email address. And we're going to go right to Neil. Sivan, Neil writes in, says, guys, returned to work on modified hours last month after 9 months of disability benefits following a spinal fusion. Some pre-surgery symptoms have returned and I'm struggling. I don't think I can resume full-time hours this week as planned. When I told my insurer about my challenges, their tone became hostile. I'm concerned they will deny my benefits if I need to resume leave. What do you think?
Very difficult situation for Neil.
Yep.
You can understand how this would create panic, right? You don't expect your insurance company to become hostile towards you. They're supposed to be your safety net. They're supposed to be there, right? Isn't that what the commercial says? You know, when it rains, we're going to be your umbrella, et cetera, et cetera. All that business. Look, insurance policies, long-term disability policies, have a provision that's called a recurrence clause. And what that means is that if you go back to work and you're unable to continue in that job, you should be able to go back on disability. And you don't have to wait for that initial period of time called the qualifying period or the elimination period, which is typically 3 to 6 months. The only thing to consider is that if you go back to work and you've been there for longer than whatever that recurrence clause gives you, let's say it tells you that within 3 months of trying to go back, you can go back on disability without waiting for the elimination period. If you go back to work for longer, you may have to reapply for your long-term disability. But in Neil's situation here, look, it seems to me like he's doing everything he can. It seems to me like he's trying his best. Spinal fusion, and that's not a small thing.
No kidding.
For the insurance company to be hostile, to me, if that's documented, that could be grounds for special damages against the insurance company if we have to go after them. But by that, I mean punishment damages, like actually going after them for the fact that they're not acting in his best interest as his insurance company. So, you know, he has obviously two issues here. One is an employment issue, which is an accommodation issue. I can't speak to that. But we deal with those kinds of issues at our office on the employment side. But on the insurance side, if he is unable to go back to work, in other words, the return to work failed, he should be able to go back on long-term disability. If his doctors confirm that he needs to be on long-term disability, he should be reapproved, okay? And if that doesn't happen, we will be able to help him. He should not be afraid to come to us. We'll be able to advise him, again, for free. He'll know exactly what his options are. And, you know, most of the time, John, what we do is we calm people down. We tell them, look, you're not in as bad of a spot as you think you are legally. Even though the insurance company seems like, you know, they're not going to do anything for you and they're going to just leave you out there hanging, that's not going to happen. We're going to hold their feet to the fire. We're going to go after them. And we're going to do it for you, not you. You can focus on getting better. Let us work for you.
MyDisabilityQuestions.com. There's another website you can use anonymously to ask your questions. From that one, Heidi says, I'm waiting to hear back from my insurer after appealing their denial of my LTD. After 2 years, I've sent letters from my specialist and family doctor confirming I am totally disabled, a term I still find confusing. What should I do if they reject my appeal? Lots in here.
Lots in here. So let's start off from the term totally disabled.
Yes.
That, again, is a term that was invented by the insurance industry. It's a very good one because when you hear total disability, you focus on the word total or totally disabled. And when I say to you, look, John, I totaled my car, you think, that's it, the car's not drivable, forget about fixing it, it's a write-off.
Right.
When I say that, I ate, the totality of my cake, I don't know, it's a bad example. But the point, the point is you think everything. That's not what it means in the LTD context. Total disability does not mean that you're catatonic, doesn't mean that you have no limbs, doesn't mean that you are brain dead, doesn't mean that. It simply means that you cannot perform the essential tasks of your own occupation. And I often give the example, very simple example, is if you are a concert pianist or if you're a surgeon and you injure your pinky finger, you may be totally disabled on the policy because you can't, play, in a concert, your instrument, or you can't operate. So total disability, again, it's a confusing term. I think it's intended to be confusing, but really you don't have to worry about it. Appealing, do not appeal. Do not appeal. These appeals are useless. They're going to take you around the block. They're going to continue denying you. This is when I tell people, give us a call. Let us help you.
Well, she says, what do I do if they reject my appeal? More like when they reject.
When they reject.
Right?
Well, I'll tell you, here's what most people do. They either walk away or they reappeal again and again and again and keep getting rejected again and again and again.
Yeah.
There's a much more powerful way of getting the insurance company to pay you, and that is having us start the legal process. Why? Because as soon as we do that, the insurance company, they now have to pay their own lawyers to deal with us. And what do insurance companies hate more than paying your claim? Paying their lawyers to deal with your claim. Trust me, I worked for them.
Yeah.
They used to argue about our bills all the time. They hate it. They hate paying lawyers. But if you try to take them on, they're going to spin you around. They're going to
tire you out, wear you out.
Yeah, they're going to shake you off claim.
Yeah.
And they know what they're doing because statistically they understand that if you don't go to an LTD lawyer, chances are they're going to be able to defeat you.
Yeah.
By that, what I mean by that is they're not going to pay you. Whereas for us, no. Listen, we'll give them a deadline. You pay our client or you don't. It's up to you, but we're going to move forward. We're going to force you to pay. We're going to use every tool in the toolbox, the legal toolbox, to make you pay our clients.
One more quick email from Sandra says, my doctor has recommended some travel to visit family that he believes will help my ongoing mental health symptoms. After informing my insurance company of this, they believe this proves I am not totally disabled, there we are again, and should be able to work. What can I do here as I am following medical advice?
Yeah, absolutely, John. And what I tell people about that is get your doctor to actually write that this was the doctor's recommendation, that the patient is following your recommendation, and that's that. And if the insurance company still takes the position, the ludicrous position, that somehow that proves that you're not disabled, good luck to them. Good luck to them in court. They're never going to go to court. They understand that ultimately, if you're following your doctor's advice, you think about it this way. Let's say a doctor says you should do it, and you didn't do it. But the insurance company is going to say, well, you're not following doctor's advice. Exactly. So we're going to cut you off. It's ridiculous. That's why, we apply common sense. We understand the law, but we apply common sense. It's not difficult. Insurance companies, again, they talk from both sides of their mouths. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that oftentimes when we challenge them on those types of decisions that they make and those kinds of positions, they fold. They fold, they reverse course, and they pay our clients. But you have to know to come to us, because if you don't, they're going to continue doing this to you. They're going to continue hanging out to dry. They're going to continue making you go round and round in circles. And the thing is, because of the anxiety that builds,
especially with a mental health center.
Correct. You're going to feel like, I don't need this anymore, and just give up. And that's what they want. So don't give them that.
And mental health situations, they often play fast and loose with that diagnosis anyway, as opposed
Absolutely
to physical,
right. And they know you're vulnerable.
Yep.
That's why we are the ones dealing with the insurance company, not you.
Yeah. Just about it for another show. Thank you for those emails. Again, a way to reach out, including mydisabilityquestions.com. You can use that anytime. It's free. It's anonymous. The phone number to Sivan and his team. Again, free consultations, which is just an added bonus to making that phone call for you, family member, colleague, whatever, doesn't matter. That number, 1-855-821-5900. Finally, that email we use every week and beyond the half hour of the show all the time is help@disabilityrights.ca. Again, help@disabilityrights.ca. Again, thank you so much for tuning into the show this week. Keep those emails coming. Keep those phone calls coming. I may appear in a future show just like that. And until next time, thank you for watching the show. And we will catch you next time right here on the Disability Law Show. Thank you.